What's up, everybody? Derek Anderson, the DA. All right, everybody, check it out. So we all know that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been on a downward spiral pretty much after Endgame. You know, everything after Endgame has just been a giant waste of time and money, in my opinion. But we got Kevin Feige coming out here right now saying, yeah, I know exactly what went wrong with the MCU after Avengers Endgame. And I say, yeah, I do too, Kev. And we've been talking to you about it. You know, so maybe Kevin Feige is finally catching up. He's finally going to admit, all right, the MCU, that was just a bad idea, y'all. The MCU was a bad idea. Maybe Kevin Feige is going to finally admit that. We should have never shoved all of this feminism into what is mostly a male-focused franchise. We should have never done it. All right, Miss Marvel, a character that has never worked in comics, never should have put a show out about that. Shouldn't have done it. All right, Thor Love and Thunder, all right, with female Thor, all right, should have never did it, all right, bad idea, terrible idea. Woke feminist She-Hulk, hiring Jessica Gal to do She-Hulk, dumb idea, should have never did it, you know. So yeah, maybe he's going to admit to that, or maybe he's going to admit that trying to go woke and putting all of these like progressive themes, pushing the black struggle into the MCU, you know, through movies or TV shows. What was it? Falcon and the Winter Soldier did that bullshit. Secret Invasion did that bullshit. Idiotic. We should have never did that. Maybe that's what Kevin Feige is going to do. Nah, that's not it at all. All right. Nope. Hey, he's just blaming this on Disney Plus. Yeah, here's the headline from the Wall Street Journal. Disney wanted more from Marvel. Now it wants less. The superhero studio is cutting back TV production and fixing its film slate after fans lost the plot. Look, Kev, bruh, you guys lost the plot over there at Marvel way before the fans did, all right? The fans didn't lose the plot. The fans just checked out. They was like, you know what? Everything I'm seeing coming out of Marvel just smells like shit. I'm out of here. Nope, I'm done. I got better things to do with my time than sit up here and follow what is basically trash. You know, if they actually did a good job with the content that they were shoving in our faces, if they actually made good shows, it might have been all right. People probably would have followed it because they want to follow things. People watch series for decades. All right. People watching Doctor Who. I never followed Doctor Who, but there's people that have been watching Doctor Who forever and a day. And new fans come in and they like what they like and they just go back and pick it up. The fact is that nobody wants to follow bullshit. Nobody's going to stick around for that. They just say, all right, you know what? Endgame was the end. I'm done. There's no reason to keep following this because what they're coming out with after this is just all trash. Now, they kind of go into that, you know, and I'm going to go through this article right here on Slash Film because it covers some of the details. But it does kind of say, like, you know, some of these productions were plagued because Kevin Feige was stretched too thin. You know, and then you had all of these writers and directors that really didn't know what they were doing. And they were trying to go up to Kevin. Hey, Kev, what should we do with this and that? And Kevin Feige was like, couldn't get back to him. So there's some like internal issues that were probably plaguing some of these productions. But just to be honest with you, like all the stuff that we were talking about with Thor Love and Thunder and Ms. Marvel and Secret Invasion and all the problems, that doesn't really have anything to do so much with Kevin Feige not being around as much. But it has to do with the fact that you did it at all. Like some of the choices that were made were just bad choices that should have never been made. But yeah, let's go ahead and check out this article. So it says, as part of the Wall Street Journal's assessment of the Marvel Cinematic Universe's recent woes, several sources close to Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige have revealed his take on what led the franchise's loss of revenue and interest in recent years. The answer is a no-brainer, but it also is something we haven't exactly heard Disney and Marvel's top brass fess up to very often until now. Oversaturation. Yeah, but see this word right here, again, I don't disagree with this. I do agree that there was way too much content, but it's also the quality of the content you're putting out. And see, in my mind, they thought that they could just push any director out there, any writer out there, adapt any character that they wanted to, and just slap the name Marvel Studios on it, play that fanfare, dun, 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 you know, put all of that shit in there, and audiences would eat it up. That's what they thought. They thought audience would eat up their oversaturation. Because why not? Like, look, Infinity War and Endgame kind of proved that, hey, audiences are liking this little connected universe. Both of those movies made $2 billion worldwide. Why wouldn't you think that? Yeah, you know what? We got something good here. Let's keep it going. That's what I think was going on in the minds of those cats over there at Marvel. You know, Bob Iger included. They thought they was untouchable. That's really what it is. They thought they was untouchable. The good times would last forever. They didn't do what we've been saying to do.
Listen to the fans.
Listen to the fans and you can't go wrong. How many times have you guys heard me say that? Listen to the damn fans. You guys remember this article right here where a producer considered it a red flag if writers were fans of the original comics? Who says that? These are the people you should have been listening to. You should have absolutely listened to the fans, not someone who's out of the culture. Bring people that are fans of the work, that know Marvel like the back of their hands. Those are the people that would have kind of helped you shape this universe. Like, even if Kevin Feige wasn't available and he was, I'm spread too thin, I can't get to you, and you're going to have to do this on your own. Who would you rather have? Some knucklehead that don't know nothing about comics, or somebody who's a fan, who's been reading this shit since they were 5 years old and loves the Marvel Cinematic Universe as well? This is who you want to be a part of this thing. Yeah, this is like my third or fourth video showing this list. This is the Phase 4 list. Imagine if you had fans working on this, all right? Imagine if you had actual fans who loved the original comics working on this slate. They would have probably said, hey, you know what? Maybe we should slow down on Eternals, or maybe they would have done Eternals right. Maybe they would have said, what was it at? Moon Knight. Maybe we'll do Moon Knight correctly and not make the bullshit that y'all made. Maybe that was what would have happened if you had fans working on this. This is the problem. Marvel got rid of the fans. They said the fans were red flags. The fans would have told you, Miss Marvel, why are you doing Miss Marvel? Miss Marvel shouldn't be done. Don't even talk to Miss Marvel. Why are we putting Miss Marvel out here? That's what the fans would have said. The fans would have said the shit that didn't work in comics is probably not going to work with the mainstream audiences. We didn't like it when it was in comics, so don't do it. But see, the MCU was in full effect. They had to put this stuff out there. This is Kevin Feige all day, but he ain't going to take the rap. Oh, it's Disney Plus. They were asking for me for too much. Instead of just owning it. Hey, Kev, this was all you, baby boy. You got to own that. Kev don't want to own it, man. He want to put it on somebody else. Blame it on the rain, right? Blame it on the rain. That's what Kevin Feige is doing. Whatever you do, don't put the blame on you. It's fucked up, man. Back to the article. According to the Wall Street Journal report, the Marvel Studios boss and mastermind thinks that a surplus of interconnected MCU shows and movies, which required viewers to tune in at both home and in theaters with increasing frequency, are to blame for the property's downturn. The outlet points to Disney's hunger for content for Disney Plus as the primary reason that the MCU started feeling like a chore. Well, it's also, again, when you have bad content. Like, if all of the content was good to great, all the TV shows and all the movies and all of that crap, all right? If it was all good to great, that list that I just showed you, everybody would have been cool. Or I think most people would have tried to keep up with it. It's like, yo, man, this is actually pretty good. Yeah, I want to keep up with this. We kept up with the first, 3 phases. All right, they're giving us a couple of extra TV shows. All right, you know what? I'm down. Again, I do think it was way too much content, but I also believe that the quality of the content has a lot more to do with it than they're acknowledging. And they're not saying that. They're not saying the content was bad. It was just too much good content. No, too much good content, is that ever a bad thing? I don't think so, man. It also acknowledges that the overwhelming amount of titles to watch didn't just exhaust fans of the franchise, but also the folks who worked on the project. So they're saying, oh, well, the projects were bad, all right? You know, the projects were bad because it was just too much and we couldn't work on it, efficiently. Kevin Feige knows Marvel dropped too many interconnected shows. Yeah, they dropped too many interconnected shows, and they also dropped too many of these little interconnections. Like, going back to this list, let me bring this list back up. Like Doctor Strange 2, Charlize Theron's character, that pops up at the end. Where has she been? It's been 3 years. Where the hell is she? We haven't seen hide nor hair of her since the one post-credit scene that she showed up in. But she's going to be in Avengers Doomsday. That's the problem with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They're just throwing all this stuff out there. Shang-Chi had a post-credit scene. Haven't seen anything about that. They have never gotten back to some of these storylines and characters. And so you watched a lot of this stuff. You didn't know how it was going to connect. You were along for the ride for the first couple of phases. I think even by the time we got to Black Panther Wakanda Forever at the end of 22, a lot of people were still on board. But now it's like, look, man, I'm done. Most people are done. The strategy just became expansion. A former Marvel employee said in a post-Avengers Endgame meeting in which Disney's chief executive officer, Bob Iger, made the programming goals for Disney Plus known. Iger has since admitted that this strategy didn't work, saying that in 23, not only did Marvel increase their output, but they ended up making a number of television series, and frankly, it diluted focus and attention. By 24, Iger was telling shareholders that Marvel's Disney Plus slate would go down to probably 2 TV series a year instead of what became 4, and that Disney and Marvel would reduce our film output from maybe 4 a year to 2 or a maximum of 3. Yeah, we saw all of this. We've heard Bob Iger say all of that. But again, he's talking about reducing the quantity, but are you going to increase the quality? Because ultimately, it's the quality that's the problem. And I guess what they're saying is, yeah, we're assuming that because we had too much quantity, the quality suffered, which is probably true. But again, why did you choose to do Miss Marvel and woke She-Hulk? Like, these are decisions y'all made. Jane Foster's Thor, that's a decision y'all made. Y'all made that decision. That has nothing to do with the fans. That has to do with what Marvel decided to give us. This strategy shift may have seemed slow for fans, many of whom have become worn out by Marvel since the early days of Disney+. It also came after Iger initially seemed keen to categorize Marvel's problems, like the box office failure of the Marvels, as one-off missteps. Yeah, Bob Iger is also a major issue. This guy is just out to lunch. He's not connected. Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, all of them, they're not connected to what the fans want.
Listen to the fans.
They don't listen to us. And that's the major issue, man. That's the biggest problem, in my opinion. For his part, sources close to Feige said he agreed to the initial plan because he was eager for the opportunity to tell Marvel stories that hadn't made the leap from comic book page to the screen yet, adding that he wanted to be an excellent corporate citizen. Well, you should have said no. And again, if you hired some fans to be writers in your writers' rooms and on some of your projects, the writers would have said, the fan writers would have said, this ain't going to work, bruh. This ain't going to work, Kev. I'm sorry. Let's sit down. Let's talk about this because it didn't work in the comics. It's not going to work now. But because you don't have any smart people in the room and you just have a bunch of content creators that just want to churn out content and they're really not interested in what the fans are interested in, this is what happens. All right. You get what you get. The Wall Street Journal report notes that Marvel employees were well aware of what they called Marvel fatigue and wondered openly if they built a no new fans club by making newer MCU films and shows so heavily interconnected as to require prerequisite viewing. Again, I go back to long-standing series, like I said, Doctor Who. I'm not a Doctor Who fan, but I know the Whovians, as they call themselves, they are connected to the whole thing. And they say the franchise is trash now. But they've been connected for a series that's been going on for like decades. And they're locked in and they love it and they keep watching it. And people that come in and they're new, they're like, oh man, Doctor Who is great. And they go back and watch all the old stuff to get caught up to know so that they can discuss it. Fans are going to be fans. So as long as the content is good, the fans will be there. When the content falls off, that's when you lose your audience. Staffers were also recalled working on projects for weeks before being able to get time with Feige. That's what I was talking about earlier. That they couldn't catch up to this dude because he was, going from here to there to here to there. So he had a lot of stuff in the pipeline who would sometimes request changes that couldn't be incorporated on a tight deadline. The piece says that Feige's annual Palm Springs MCU planning meeting in 23 was somber, but it also notes there's a new strategy for the MCU. Fewer titles, multiple seasons, and less convoluted crossovers, with Feige devoting most of his time to the films. Yeah, I think this is smart. Again, I'm not, saying that Feige is the answer, but this is definitely it. All right? Fewer titles, multiple seasons. Yeah, let's get like 2 or 3 seasons of a TV show instead of like these little one-offs. It's like, all right, we did Secret Invasion. That was like a limited series. But, it's like some of these other series, it's like, are we going to get a season 2 of this? We don't know. So it's like, I don't know the purpose of them even doing this crap. At the end of the day, this was just a losing proposition all the way. Trying to say that the fans lost the plot. Yeah, the fans lost the plot after y'all lost the plot. All right. At the end of the day, it's down to what the fans want. If they don't listen to the fans, it's just going to be more of the same. I don't care how many changes you decide to make and how much content you're cranking out. If you're not tuned in to your audience and knowing what your audience is looking for, it's not going to work. And I think that Marvel, Disney, Star Wars, Hollywood in general, honestly, is just disconnected when it comes to these major franchises, that is. They're disconnected from what fans are looking for. It's just like Harry Potter over there putting a black Snape in. That's how disconnected those guys are. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, y'all let me know what y'all think about this, man. I think the blame should be placed squarely on Kevin Feige's shoulders. Don't slide it over there to Disney+. Kevin Feige learned how to fight for what it is you believe in. And I think Feige did. I think Feige did exactly what he wanted to do. And now he's going to try to say, oh, man, they asked for too much content. Ain't my fault. It's ridiculous, man. Anyway, y'all let me know what y'all think about this. Jump down in the comments. Give me your thoughts and opinions on that. And thanks for watching. See you next time.